Hello, welcome to Swarajya Direct Line. Last week was a very hot one on the line of control in Kashmir. Early on, around Monday, we heard of a big encounter in the Karen sector, which is under the watchful eyes of Srinagar-based Chinar Corps, the 15 Corps. This encounter between special forces and terrorists, in which it was first reported that 3 army personnel were killed, and later on this number was revised to 5 um, paratroopers being killed. 5 terrorists were also killed in the operation. Very quickly, questions were asked as to how come such a high casualty was suffered there, especially considering that these were elite paratroopers, para-SF troopers that were killed in this operation. Now, later on, towards Friday and Saturday, we were actually seeing visuals from an unmanned aerial vehicle of Pakistani positions being pounded by Indian artillery. We were told that the Indian Army was actually employing precision strike artillery shells for the strike, and 105 Indian field guns and the Bofors guns were being deployed. All in all, it was a very hot week on the line of control. A lot of things happening. I've got Prakhar Gupta, Swarajya's pointsman for defense issues, to give us some answers about what was happening. Prakhar, can you first start with the Karen encounter? What was happening there and how did we get here?
Sure. So, in the last weeks of March, at least in the last 2 weeks, what has happened is Pakistan has been violating the ceasefire continuously, and the result is that we have had at least 411 ceasefire violations in March itself. And while this number would not, surprise people, but if to put the things in perspective, there were just 267 ceasefire violations last year and 201 in 2018. So 2018 and 19, both years, India and Pakistan had bad relations, and even in those years, we had just half the number of violations we've had this month. So over the last 2 weeks, Pakistan has been violating ceasefire on the line of control continuously. And in the month of March, we have had at least 411 ceasefire violations that have been reported by the Indian Army, while just this number alone would not surprise people when they hear this. To put into perspective, we have had at least 267 ceasefire violations last year and only 201 in 2018. 2 years when the relations between India and Pakistan were poor. So this year we have had at least twice that number of ceasefire violations, and the situation worsened when India found at least 5 to 6 terrorists being infiltrated across the border, even as both India and Pakistan were, fighting a separate war at home against COVID-19. So this was a serious provocation for India, and this happening so early in the year when snow has just started melting was unacceptable for India, and I think that was the provocation that they took seriously and responded.
This operation was first begun by these paratroopers, or was it a sort of an operation where the paratroopers had to be called in at the last moment?
I think paratroopers were called in later because the first responders were, of course, the people, the soldiers who guard the fence, and they noticed movement around 1st of April, and the army quickly sent out search parties comprising soldiers from 8th Jat Regiment. And on 2nd April, we deployed soldiers from 41 and 57 Rashtriya Rifle. And that day, they were able to engage infiltrators with heavy gunfire, but the infiltrators managed to escape. Then on 3rd, again, they were able to establish contact, but again, as we know now, the terrorists escaped. It was on 4th April that the army realized that the terrain was very difficult and it was snowing heavily. They decided to deploy 2 parties of 4 para-special forces in the region, and they were dropped from a helicopter in the region, 2 parties, each having 5 to 6 men. And they took the operation forward.
This is the bit where the photograph comes from, where a Dhruv helicopter is shown deploying men.
Yeah, we see a photograph where
who then actually standing once they get down the chopper, they're actually standing in 4 feet of snow.
Yeah, correct. This was around 12:31 a.m. on 4th of April.
And then what happened?
And then tragedy struck. These soldiers, having marched for almost 12 hours, found themselves on a what you call an overhanging edge or on a ridge where there is no base. So these soldiers walked onto the edge of the mountain, and which collapsed under the weight of the soldiers. And tragically, they fell right in front of the hideout where the terrorists were hiding. And it was a nala, but it was frozen. So they were just maybe 2 to 3 meters away from the place the terrorists had been hiding. And that is where the encounter began. And even before they could recover from the fall, they were shot at and they responded, killing at least 3 to 4 terrorists. And the other 3 paratroopers also followed in, and 4 terrorists were neutralized, but at least 3 of the army soldiers died on the spot, and 2 were evacuated to Srinagar Army Hospital, where they succumbed to their injuries.
Complete bad stroke of luck, considering there was so much effort being made in the early parts of the operation, and it had to come to the paratroopers, and then they fall into the crevice by walking.
Indeed.
By walking.
Yeah, it was bad weather and the terrain.
And later on Friday around noon and evening, we were shown pictures of, or at least on social media, we found videos of what seemed to be artillery strikes on Pakistani positions. Tell us about it.
There were some random videos that had started coming in on social media around 6 or 7 p.m. that day. But it was around 8:39 when we saw this video posted by Aditya Raj Kaul, who's a defense journalist and is from Kashmir. And he posted this video where we can see drone footage and artillery shells being fired. Of course, we can't see the trajectory of the shells, but it is very clear that the Indian Army put it out to send out a message across the border to the Pakistan Army and the establishment that they will not take this as the infiltration, so to say, the infiltration season starts.
Right, and what do we know about the firing? There was some talk about precision artillery fire, which is basically laser guided or
the army has not given any details on this. So we only know that the Bofors howitzers were used, and some reports also say that 105 mm field guns were also used. So it is 105 mm field guns and 155 mm Bofors field howitzers. We don't have a word on precision mutation if that was used, but definitely howitzers. And we have some videos from different angles of shelling of howitzers being fired from Kashmir, from the Keren sector in Kupwara, which is in northern Kashmir. And this target was well within range of Indian field guns.
Right. All in all, a very bad week. We've had 5 men killed, a lot of shelling going on, and this is still very early in the
Pakistan has kept mum, and we don't know what the reason is. They may want to respond at some point. So there is no word from the army yet as to what is happening now in Kashmir. Some ceasefire violations have been reported today, though, but in different sectors.
Right, and this is very early in the infiltration season, right? The snow hasn't even melted.
The snow has just started to melt.
Looks like we can look forward to a very, very, very hot and tense summer on the line of control this year. Thank you so much, Prakhar, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.